Good afternoon, mathematicians, and welcome to part 3 of Miss Granton's video on chapter 7.6, factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. In this video, we will do an example of a polynomial, or a trinomial, to be more specific, that has a negative a term. So let's go ahead and factor negative 4p squared plus 19p plus 5. Okay, so ignoring that negative in front of the 4 for a second, if we look at 4p squared, 19p, and 5, we need to ask ourselves, what is the GCF? And if you need a refresher on that, please watch parts 1 and 2 of my video on greatest common factor. But it turns out that the greatest common factor of 4p squared, 19p, and 5 is 1. Okay, so we figured out our GCF, so we know what we need to pull out in front of parentheses. But be careful, I also see this negative right here. And when that happens, if you see a negative as your coefficient for your quadratic term, you need to pull out that negative as well. We don't want negatives inside of the parentheses. So pulling out that negative like that results in a negative 1 on the outside. So then what goes in here? Well, if we pulled out a negative 1, we simply need to change the signs of all of these terms right here. So instead of negative 4p squared, we get a positive 4p squared. Instead of positive 19p, we get negative 19p. And instead of positive 5, we get negative 5. Okay. So now we're going to have to focus on factoring that trinomial right there. And by the way, this expression right here is the same as this expression right here. So all I did was replace the negative 1 with just a negative sign, because if there's just a negative sign right there, that implies that it's negative 1. So on the next page, we are going to factor this trinomial, but let's make sure that in standard form we know what our coefficients and constant terms are. So standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, our quadratic term, the coefficient is a. Where does that correspond in the trinomial? To 4, positive 4. Okay, how about b? That'll be negative 19. And c, that's negative 5. Okay, great. On the next page, let's start factoring. So we have negative quantity 4p squared minus 19p minus 5. Okay, we know when we factor, we're going to get something that looks like this, and I'll put my plus signs there. And because we have the negative right here, remember to bring that down and put it on the outside there. Okay, so looking at our a term, which is 4, what are the factors of 4? I can think of 2 times 2, 4 times 1, and 1 times 4. And again, we're not going to take into account the negatives, because anytime we have a negative, we pull it out, just like we did here. Okay, let's look at our c term, our constant term, negative 5. What are the factors there? Well, we could have 5 times negative 1, negative 5 times positive 1, 1 times negative 5, and negative 1 times positive 5. And as discussed in part 2, when we do FOIL, we want to multiply these two terms, get the product, and then add that to these two terms once we get that product. And we want that result to equal the coefficient of that linear term. So in this case, we want negative 19. So maybe let's choose, and I'm going to create some space down here. We'll do that on our next page. Let's do some trial and error. I'm going to go ahead and choose this group here and this group here. So let's say we multiply 2 times 5. What is that? That's 10. And let's say we multiply 2 times negative 1. What is that? That's negative 2. So 10 plus negative 2 is the same as 10 minus 2. And what is that? That is 8. And we're looking for negative 19. So 8 does not equal negative 19. So that is not the correct match. Okay, let's try another one. How about we choose this group? So what is 2 times negative 5? Negative 10. And what is 2 times 1? That's 2. What's negative 10 plus 2? Negative 8. Again, we want negative 19. So those are not equal. So that is not the correct match. I think 2's might be a little too low. Maybe we should try a group with a 4 and a 1. So let's try these two groups here with the purple arrows. Let's multiply 4 times negative 5. What is that? Negative 20. And what is 1 times 1? That's 1. And what is negative 20 plus 1? Negative 19. And we want negative 19. We found it. Good, we found our match. So this group here and this group here. So on the next page, let me rewrite this. Negative quantity 4p squared minus 19p minus 5. Okay, bring down that negative. We're going to want something that looks like this. Okay, so what goes here and here? Let's look on the previous page. We chose this group, so we have a 4 and a 1, or 4p and 1p. Okay, 4p and 1p. What goes here and here? Looking back, we chose negative 5 and positive 1. But remember, since we will be using FOIL and multiplying, we essentially have to switch the order in the parentheses so that it matches up when we multiply. So instead of negative 5 and positive 1, we'll put the positive 1 here and the negative 5 here. So let me rewrite that so that it looks a little bit neater. Bring down your negative. We have a 4p plus 1 and a 1p, or just a p, and plus negative 5 is really minus 5. Okay, let's do a quick FOIL check. 4p times p, 4p squared. Good. 4p times negative 5, negative 20p. 1 times p, 1p. And what is negative 20p plus 1p? Negative 19p. Okay, good, check. And 1 times negative 5, negative 5, check. So we correctly matched the factored expression to give us back the expanded expression right here. So we know that our factoring is correct. Therefore, this is our solution. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please email me, contact me through Google Classroom, come to my Zoom meetings from 10 to 11 every weekday morning, and I hope you have a wonderful day.